did have this sentence in my head yesterday, and it was, "There are no lifeguards on duty." And when I think about that sentence, it reminds me of the cell, and the lifeguard is us. Like, we're our own lifeguard. We are the only ones who can protect our health and take steps towards understanding and remembering our own biology so that we can invest in our mitochondria, invest in our capacity for light and for patience. And what's interesting too is that, like, I got into all of this because I was studying the metabolic theory of cancer by Otto Warburg and Dr. Thomas Seifert. And the reason why I got into studying the metabolic theory of cancer was because I was learning resistance training, like lifting weights in the gym. And I'm working so hard in the gym, and I was like, okay, I think, like, if I can tweak my nutrition and understand my nutrition a little bit better, then I can, get better results with resistance training. So, I started to study insulin and glucose, and started to understand, like, I had heard about diabetes, like, but I didn't understand what is happening in diabetes. And so, I started to learn type 2 diabetes. If you start resistance training, that's one of the number one ways to reverse type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance, because by resistance training, we increase insulin sensitivity, we build muscle, we build mitochondria in order to scoop up blood sugar and to just have the entire system working better. So I thought that was interesting. And then I got down into the rabbit hole with studying cancer biology because, according to Otto Warburg, most cancer cells, they will upregulate the pathway of glycolysis, which is, they'll shut off the mitochondria and use this very inefficient pathway of fermentation and production of lactic acid. And so that's, and it's really fascinating me because, cancer is something that we don't necessarily fully understand. There's so many things in science that we don't understand, but it's also something that, like, petrifies people to think about getting a diagnosis like this. It also is, like, our second leading cause of death, if not almost the first, about to surpass heart disease. And there also is, it used to be something that was, more susceptible as we age, as we were older. And now we do see that it's younger and younger diagnosis in either hormonal cancers that they call them, like prostate or breast. And look, I'm just gonna say right here, like, I'm not perfect in the way that I understand things. I get things wrong all the time. This is why I'm always saying, like, do your own research. I created this channel because I have so much passion in my heart for understanding biology and understanding resistance training from what I have learned. And so, anyway, so I started studying the metabolic theory of cancer, and they talk a lot about ketogenic diets. And you learn about a ketogenic diet was discovered to treat people with epileptic seizures, people who were having seizures just all day long. And they said, okay, well, when we fast these people, when they don't have any food, no glucose, no spikes, they actually stop having as many seizures. So what they did is they said, okay, I'm going to put these people with epileptic seizures, I'm going to put them on a ketogenic diet, which is only protein and fat. Our bodies are so incredible, they can actually create their own blood sugar if we need to. But if we're only eating a lot of protein and fat can be used to create another energy molecule, the fourth energy molecule, ketones. So carbs, protein, fat, ketones. But we don't create a lot of ketones because we have such high carbohydrate, high processed food diets, and the mitochondria aren't working to their fullest capacity. So, and then of course I came into Dr. Mary Newport's work with Alzheimer's dementia, and her husband Steve, who had early onset dementia. Again, dementia is becoming an earlier disease, just like cancer is too. A lot of this has to do with insulin resistance and inflammation. And just, if you take a step back, it just could be used looked at as an energetic imbalance of the body. And so that's when we invest into the mitochondria. So doing a ketogenic diet, we're investing deeply and straightforwardly, carnivore diet too, into the mitochondria, as we're not relying on insulin, and we're able to also boost our ketone production, which ketone is kind of like turbo or rocket fuel for the brain, for mitochondria, for the body. It's a lot more efficient from a thermodynamic standpoint. So a lot of times, so if you take the disease of cancer, it is marked by, it's an inflammatory disease, so high levels of inflammation. And so anytime you think of itis or inflammation, you're thinking about heat. So heat, the immune system. When you touch your forehead, you are touching infrared light. It's a spectrum of light that we can't see, but we can feel. Infrared light also comes from the sun. When you go in the sun, you feel the heat. That's light. Fire from the stove. It's heat. It's light. So we are giving off infrared light. A mitochondria actually produces infrared light. Of course, they're the powerhouse of the cell. This infrared light that they're producing, giving off, it charges and hydrates the mitochondria, which there's Gerald Pollack, researcher. There's Carrie B. Wellness. I've listened to a lot of these different people. Dr. Jack Cruz. There's so many people that are talking about this topic. If you want to go look further into it. But Otto Warburg's theory of cancer was that in every secondary cause of any cancer, there's a dysfunction in the mitochondria. So Dr. Thomas Seyfried, his approach to prevention of these metabolic illnesses, which includes things like cancer, but also heart disease, diabetes, fatty liver disease, any degenerative diseases, is to invest in the mitochondria. So if we can invest in the mitochondria, so this is why they say all day long, till we're blue in the face, exercise is good for us. Why? Because it's directly training the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell. So I think it's so beautiful. That's really how I got into all of this. And so as I was thinking about that topic, it was, there are no lifeguards on duty. It's like we are the only ones who can dig into the information to silence the noise and what we hear from other people, and to silence the noise of our own confusion, because I have been so confused in my health journey, and the only thing that has helped anchor me in my understanding is I look at this picture every single day. I think about this picture every single day, and I've dug into trying to understand, what is my body made of? What is every single cell membrane made of? Dr. Mary Newport's work is great. Every cell membrane is made of fat. It's called a lipid bilayer. Every single cell membrane has cholesterol in it. So when you start to understand how important fat and cholesterol is for every single cell membrane, it starts to put together the puzzle pieces of why we were ever told that fat and cholesterol are not bad for us. It starts to make sense why there's so much money to be made off of fearing our own biology. The statin industry is the biggest profiting industry in the country. I have known many people who their doctors tried to put them on a statin, and they did not even hit the numbers for recommended statin use. This happens all the time, and it's incredibly sad if you think about how low cholesterol levels are linked to Alzheimer's dementia. So if that gets you any inclination as to how important it is for us, or I just encourage you to go study what it is. Cholesterol is the backbone of every single steroid hormone. And when I think about this too, so steroid hormones, sex hormones, if our sex hormones are low, then our stress hormones are going to be high, because they operate like yin and yang. Like the body, everything is like give and take, right? When I go work out, I am killing my bone cells, I'm destroying my muscle cells, so that I can have a growth stimulus afterwards, later. When I go out into the sun, I am creating the most melatonin, and I'm also doing destruction and damage to my body for the sake of melanin creation, for the sake of running through these biochemical pathways, because like when I go out in the sun, I'm breaking down all the food that I'm eating. I'm breaking down tryptophan, I'm making serotonin, I'm making melatonin. This is driving my circadian rhythm, right? But I can't, if I'm afraid of the sun and never go into the sun, I'm not going to help these biochemical pathways move forward. If I'm not exercising, I'm not going to help these biochemical pathways move forward. So I have to go through some death and destruction in order to sling back and get into this restorative repair state. You know, if there's anything about life, it looks like it is like everything's changing. We must move, no matter what. Like, you feel young today, but tomorrow you're going to be a day older, and you're not going to be young forever. Like, life must continue to cycle and move on. And what's beautiful is that, like, the cell, it never stays stagnant, and it's always healing. It's always working towards our highest good. It's only we get in our own way, and we slow down these healing processes. So that's why I started the carnivore ketogenic diet like a little over a month now, and I'll say it is a rough transition, and that is because you're coming off of a sugar addiction, carbohydrate addiction, and we don't, like, I told somebody the other day, like, I remember me and my sister were talking about this. I remember the day that I found out that broccoli was a carbohydrate. Like, I didn't know, because we don't learn much about foods. Like, I thought like a carbohydrate was just sugar. Like, I didn't know, because I was in the idea of like, okay, fruits and vegetables, they're kind of in their own category. They're just good for you. Just eat them. But they're also just sugars. And then you start to look at the biology, and like, we have gluconeogenesis. We can create our own sugars even if we don't intake sugars. That's incredible that can happen. And I was telling somebody the other day, they posted a picture of their food, of their plate, and they said, no carbohydrates on here, don't hate on me. And it was like a thing of broccoli sitting on their plate, and I was like, bro, your broccoli has carbohydrates. And they were like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I was like, yeah, it's so funny. Like, this is an important part of your nutritional journey, to understand, like, how does our food become our cells? How does it interact with the mitochondria? What effect does this have on the brain? Like, the brain is taking 20 to 30% of our energy per day. That's a lot of energy. And years ago, I was on an anti-anxiety medication, and just feeling so low, and I was like, where does serotonin come from? If I'm taking a serotonin medication, where does serotonin come from? So then that's when I started to get into the biochemistry, and I started to study the amino and the fatty acids. Man, and I've been on a journey since then. I said, okay, I'm going to start eating more animal-based protein with tryptophan. So I started eating eggs every single day. And now I eat a ton of red meat where there's a ton of tryptophan in there. It breaks down into serotonin, breaks down into melatonin. It's just beautiful. And I think a lot can be gained from keeping things like really simple. Like I said, when you peel your skin back, all you see is a bunch of red meat. It's so beautiful. It's so simple, Like, we go to the ends of the earth to, complicate everything. And you really can get lost in the complexity of everything. And I think the most beautiful thing is realizing and remembering, especially for myself, is that we don't know everything. And we may never know everything about the body and how it heals. A lot of that has to do with just pure faith and outlook on life. If I think the world is a terrible place, my nervous system is going to stay in the stress response, in the fight or flight response. I'm going to assume that every person has a negative agenda against me. But when I decide that the world is a beautiful place, that my body loves me, and I start to nurture and nourish myself, I start to think good things about other people. And when you think good things about other people, like, there's no gap between the minds. People pick up on the thoughts that you have about them. And if you don't think this is true, like, it's just like, I always say this, but it's like being at a party and someone negative walks in, you feel that way. You feel there's something about this person I just don't like. And the same is true for the other thing. It's someone really bright and just happy and joyous. They walk in the room. Why do I like this person? It's because they have good thought processes going out of them. And that is our biochemistry. We share biochemistry with people. You know, you ever ran into someone randomly on the street and they just ruin your day? Bad interaction. And same thing is true for somebody else. Some random stranger, you have a conversation in the grocery store, you both laugh, you walk away, your biochemistry's changed. It's so beautiful. We share hormones with people. We share mitochondria capacity, light capacity with other people. I think it's so beautiful. So anyway, I hope this video is helpful for you in some way. I wish you the best of luck. Especially if you are, thinking about starting the carnivore ketogenic diet. You don't have to be perfect. I think the easiest transition is just really starting off with breakfast, starting off with like a really nutrient dense fat and protein breakfast, and just feel the difference. Like, how does this affect me? How does it feel different from when I'm eating just oatmeal or something else? Do I feel just more energized? Anyway, I wish you the best of luck. I love you. You're so beautiful. Remember, we don't see ourselves accurately, and I'll catch you later.